I am Jillian, 32 years old, and until 6 months ago, I was a senior web developer at a Fortune 500 company. I left corporate America to freelance from home building websites for clients around the world. Last Sunday, at our weekly family dinner, my sister Brooke showed everyone a meme comparing freelance coders to unemployed gamers. As everyone laughed, I smiled through the pain, wondering how my own sister could publicly mock my career. Before I tell you how this family betrayal unfolded, let me know where you're watching from, and hit subscribe if you've ever been underestimated by someone who should have supported you. Growing up, I always felt like the shadow to my sister's spotlight. Brooke is 3 years younger than me, but somehow always seemed to command more attention and praise from our parents. While I was the quiet, thoughtful child who could spend hours tinkering with computers, Brooke was the vibrant, athletic daughter who brought home trophies and popularity. Our childhood home in suburban Pennsylvania was plastered with Brooke's achievements. The living room shelves displayed her swimming medals, soccer trophies, and academic awards. My accomplishments, mostly digital, didn't have physical representations to showcase. When I built my first website at 14, my parents nodded politely before quickly turning the conversation to Brooke's upcoming swim meet. "Computers are nice, Jillian, but they're not real life," my father would say. "Look at your sister out there making real connections with people." This pattern continued throughout high school. While Brooke was elected homecoming queen and captain of the volleyball team, I was teaching myself JavaScript and building websites for local businesses. I remember the day I proudly showed my parents that I had earned $500 creating a website for our neighborhood bakery. "That's nice, honey," my mother said, patting my hand. "But is this really going to lead anywhere? Your sister just got accepted to the business program at Dad's alma mater?" The contrast in their reactions was stark and painful. When Brooke announced her acceptance, there were tears, hugs, and an immediate celebration dinner. My achievements always seemed to be met with lukewarm acknowledgement at best. Our parents had clear visions for both of us. Brooke was following our father's path into finance, the golden child destined for corporate success. I was the question mark, the daughter whose passion for technology seemed more like a phase they were waiting for me to outgrow. By the time I reached college, I had accepted my role in the family. I pursued computer science at a state university, while Brooke attended an Ivy League business school, with our father's glowing recommendations. Family conversations revolved around Brooke's internships at prestigious firms, her expanding network of important connections, and her promising future. When I graduated with honors in computer science, my parents attended the ceremony, but spent most of the day discussing Brooke's upcoming summer position at a Wall Street firm. I received practical gifts like kitchenware and gift cards, while Brooke's graduation a year later was commemorated with a European vacation and a new car. I secured my first tech job at 25 working for a respected software company with a competitive salary. It was a personal triumph that exceeded even my own expectations. Yet at the family dinner where I announced my news, my father's response was telling. "That's wonderful, Jillian, very practical. You know, Brooke just got promoted to junior analyst after only 6 months at her firm. Her boss says she's on the fast track to management." Every family gathering became a showcase for Brooke's conventional success. She mastered the art of humble bragging about client meetings with celebrities, exclusive networking events, and rapid promotions. Our parents soaked up every detail, their pride evident in their beaming faces. I tried everything to gain similar approval. I mentioned salary increases and successful projects. I explained the importance of the applications I was helping develop. I even started dressing more professionally at family gatherings, hoping to be taken more seriously. Nothing worked. "But what exactly do you do all day?" my mother would ask, genuine confusion on her face. "Just type on a computer." It seems so isolated. Meanwhile, Brooke's work life was considered fascinating and important. The double standard was impossible to ignore. As years passed, this dynamic created a complicated relationship between Brooke and me. On the surface, we maintained a polite sisterly bond, exchanging birthday gifts and occasional texts. Below that thin veneer lay a canyon of unspoken competition and resentment. Brooke seemed to enjoy her position as the favorite, often subtly reinforcing it by offering me career advice or commenting that it wasn't too late for me to move into something more people-oriented like her. Each suggestion carried the implication that my choices were somehow less valid, less impressive, less worthy of respect. I spent my 20s trying to prove my worth to a family that had already decided where their admiration would be directed. The pattern seemed unchangeable, a family script written long ago that none of us had the power to revise. Little did I know that my decision to leave corporate life would bring this tension to a breaking point and force a complete rewrite of our family dynamics. By my 30th birthday, I was climbing the corporate ladder at an impressive pace, but feeling increasingly empty inside. My job title read Senior Web Developer at Digital First Solutions, a company whose clients included several Fortune 500 corporations. From the outside, I had achieved success by conventional standards. I had the salary, the downtown apartment, and the impressive company name to drop at family gatherings. What no one saw were the 80-hour work weeks, the midnight debugging sessions, and the constant pressure to perform. Our office culture glorified burnout, treating exhaustion as a badge of honor. My direct manager would send emails at 2 in the morning and expect responses. Taking a full weekend off was considered a sign of lack of commitment. "You look terrible," my coworker Lisa said one Monday morning. My skin was pale, dark circles had taken permanent residence under my eyes, and I had lost weight without trying. "When was the last time you slept more than 4 hours?" I couldn't remember. The turning point came during a company hackathon. I was paired with Ryan, a developer from another team who seemed strangely well-rested and positive despite the pressure. "How are you not stressed about this deadline?" I asked him during our third consecutive hour of coding. "Because I know on Monday I'm going back to my real work," he said. "I'm just here as a favor to my old boss." Ryan, it turned out, had left the company 8 months earlier to freelance. He now worked remotely for clients across 3 continents, setting his own hours and rates. Most surprisingly, he was making more money while working fewer hours. "The first few months were scary," he admitted. "But once I built a client base, everything changed. Now I work 30 hours a week maximum, and I just spent a month coding from a beach in Thailand." That conversation planted a seed in my mind that wouldn't stop growing. I began researching freelance web development, joining online communities, and learning about building a client portfolio. I started with small projects on weekends, building websites for friends' small businesses, and taking on minor freelance jobs through online platforms. Meanwhile, my corporate job was becoming increasingly unsustainable. I started having panic attacks in the office bathroom. My doctor diagnosed me with anxiety and suggested a less stressful work environment. I was losing hair and developed insomnia that even prescription medication couldn't fully address. My parents noticed my deteriorating health during a family visit, but attributed it to poor self-care rather than workplace toxicity. "You should take vitamins like Brooke does," my mother suggested. "She works just as hard as you do, but she always makes time for exercise and proper meals." What she didn't understand was that Brooke's corporate finance job, while demanding, operated within boundaries. Emails after 8 p.m. were considered emergencies. Weekends were generally respected. My industry and company were different animals entirely. Over 6 months, I built a modest portfolio of freelance work and saved aggressively, creating a financial buffer that could support me for half a year if necessary. I calculated exactly how much I needed to earn monthly to maintain my lifestyle and developed a concrete plan for client acquisition. When I finally gave notice at my company, my boss seemed more annoyed than concerned. "You're walking away from a career to do what? Build websites in your pajamas," he scoffed. His reaction was mild compared to my family's. When I announced my decision at Sunday dinner, my father put down his fork and stared at me like I had just declared I was joining a cult. "You're quitting a perfectly good job to do freelance work?" he asked incredulously. "In this economy." My mother looked worried. "Honey, is this because you can't handle the pressure? Because that's not a good reason to throw away job security." Brooke's reaction was the most telling. She smiled in a way that didn't reach her eyes and said, "Well, I guess some people aren't cut out for the corporate world. And you always did prefer playing on your computer to real work." The dismissiveness stung, but I was determined. My health and happiness depended on this change. I had done the research, built a foundation, and created a realistic plan. This wasn't an impulsive decision, but my family couldn't see beyond their conventional understanding of success. In the weeks that followed, I received daily texts from my mother with job listings. Brooke sent emails about taking a mental health break and early retirement that were thinly veiled jabs. My father called twice a week with concerned lectures about retirement accounts and health insurance. Their lack of faith was disheartening, but also motivating. For the first time in my life, I was making a decision completely for myself, not to earn their approval. I was choosing my well-being over their perception of success. It was terrifying and liberating all at once. As I packed up my corporate office for the last time, I felt a mixture of exhilaration and doubt. Was I making a massive mistake? Would I prove my family right about my inability to succeed on conventional terms? The uncertainty was uncomfortable, but not nearly as painful as the physical and emotional toll of staying where I was. My last day ended with a lukewarm goodbye happy hour with colleagues who were already checking emails on their phones as they wished me luck. I walked out of the glass tower that had been my professional home for years, taking a deep breath of evening air that somehow felt different now. I was unemployed for the first time since college by choice, and about to find out if I had what it took to succeed on my own terms. The first Monday of my freelance life, I woke up without an alarm for the first time in years. The silence in my apartment felt foreign and slightly unsettling. Without the urgency of a morning commute, I found myself at loose ends, questioning my decision in the harsh light of day. I had converted my spare bedroom into a home office with a proper desk ergonomic chair and dual monitors. It looked professional and purposeful, but as I sat down that first morning, imposter syndrome hit me like a physical force. What have I done? I whispered to myself, staring at the empty calendar that stretched before me. The first week was a crash course in self-discipline. Without external structure, I found myself either overworking until midnight or getting distracted by household tasks. Finding balance required conscious effort. I created a schedule setting specific work hours and breaks. I dressed professionally each morning, even though no one would see me, to mentally transition into work mode. My initial clients came from connections I had already established. A friend's boutique needed an e-commerce site. A former colleague recommended me to his brother's startup. These projects paid less than I hoped, but provided crucial portfolio pieces and testimonials. The financial reality was sobering. My first month's earnings covered less than half of my expenses, forcing me to dip into savings more heavily than anticipated. Every purchase became a careful calculation. I canceled streaming subscriptions cooked at home instead of ordering takeout and postponed buying new clothes. Finding high-paying clients proved more challenging than expected. I spent hours crafting proposals for projects on freelance platforms only to be outbid by developers in countries with lower cost of living. I received rejections from clients who questioned my experience or wanted more specialized skills than I possessed. Each rejection email felt like confirmation of my family's doubts. Late at night when work was slow, those doubts would creep in, whispering that perhaps I had made a catastrophic mistake. Brooke didn't help matters. 3 weeks into my freelance journey, she sent an email with the subject line, "Thinking of you," that contained links to 6 corporate job openings. "Just keeping these on your radar in case the freelance thing isn't working out," she wrote. No shame in admitting when an experiment fails. I didn't respond, but her message lingered in my mind during moments of insecurity. The first significant test came at our monthly family dinner. I had been freelancing for exactly 1 month and had secured only 3 small projects. As we passed dishes around my parents' dining table, the interrogation began. "So, how's the unemployment going?" my father asked, not even attempting to hide his disapproval. "I'm not unemployed, Dad. I'm self-employed," I corrected. "And it's going well. I'm building my client base." "But are you making money?" he pressed. "Real money enough to pay your bills?" Before I could answer, Brooke interjected. "I was just telling Dad about Jessica from my office, who tried freelancing last year. She's back now and says it was the biggest financial mistake of her life." My mother reached across the table to pat my hand. "We just worry about your future, sweetheart. Your sister has her 401k health insurance and is already being considered for another promotion. We want that security for you too." The message was clear. My choice was viewed as a temporary lapse in judgment rather than a legitimate career path. I left that dinner feeling defeated and questioning my decision more deeply than ever. The breakthrough came unexpectedly. A small project I had completed for a local restaurant owner led to a referral to his brother, who ran a successful regional food distribution company. He needed a complete website overhaul and ongoing maintenance, a contract that would provide steady income for at least 6 months. During our initial video call, he asked about my corporate background and seemed impressed rather than concerned by my decision to go freelance. "I did the same thing 15 years ago," he said. "Everyone thought I was crazy to leave a steady paycheck. Now I employ 30 people. Sometimes you have to trust your gut." His validation was like oxygen to a suffocating person. For the first time, I felt understood and respected for my choice. The contract we signed paid fairly for my skills and included clear boundaries around availability and scope, something I had rarely experienced in corporate life. This client taught me crucial lessons about setting professional boundaries and valuing my expertise. When I declined a request for weekend work explaining my policy on after-hours communication, he respected it without question. This small interaction was revolutionary for someone accustomed to round-the-clock availability being the unstated expectation. With one stable client secured, my confidence grew. I raised my rates for new clients and became more selective about the projects I accepted. I learned to identify red flags in client communications and to walk away from opportunities that didn't respect my time or expertise. Slowly, my calendar began filling with meaningful work. My bank account stopped its steady decline and stabilized. I developed systems for everything from client onboarding to invoicing that made my business more professional and efficient. 3 months into freelancing, I had 4 regular clients and 2 project-based contracts. I was working 40 hours a week instead of 80 sleeping through the night, and beginning to remember what it felt like to enjoy my work. I still wasn't matching my corporate salary, but I was covering my expenses and rebuilding my savings incrementally. Most importantly, I was rediscovering my passion for web development. Without the pressure of corporate politics and artificial deadlines, I could focus on crafting elegant solutions and learning new technologies. For the first time in years, I felt like a developer rather than a cog in a machine. As my business stabilized, I allowed myself to feel cautiously optimistic. I wasn't out of the woods financially, but I could see a path forward that was both sustainable and fulfilling. What I didn't anticipate was how my small success would threaten the family dynamic that had been established years ago, or how a simple meme would bring our unspoken tensions to the surface. The day that changed everything started like any other. I was 4 months into my freelance journey and had just secured my biggest client, yet a promising tech startup that needed a complete website rebuild and user interface design. The contract would nearly double my monthly income and provide the financial stability I had been working toward. Excited about this milestone, I did something I rarely did anymore. I shared good news in our family group chat, a digital space typically dominated by Brooke's accomplishments. Just signed my biggest client yet, I wrote, a startup that just received second-round funding. Excited to design their new platform. For a few minutes, there was silence, unusual in a chat that normally featured quick congratulations for any of Brooke's announcements. Then my phone buzzed with a new message. It was from Brooke, a shared image rather than text. I opened it to find a meme featuring a young man surrounded by empty energy drink cans and fast food wrappers, gaming headset on, with text overlay reading, "Freelance coding equals unemployed gamer." She had added several laughing emojis for emphasis. Before I could respond, notifications flooded in. My father sent a laughing emoji. My mother added, "That's funny." My aunt, uncle, and 2 cousins who were also in the chat all responded with variations of laughter. I stared at my phone, a cold feeling spreading through my chest. My moment of professional pride had been swiftly transformed into family ridicule. The message was clear. My work wasn't real work. My accomplishments weren't real accomplishments. I was a joke. I set my phone down and walked away, my hands shaking. Tears burned behind my eyes as the full weight of their dismissal hit me. This wasn't just Brooke being competitive or my parents favoring her path. This was active mockery of my career choice, my daily efforts, my dreams. After collecting myself, I picked up my phone again to see more messages had accumulated. The conversation had moved on without acknowledgement of my announcement, shifting to Brooke's upcoming business trip to London. My achievement had been buried under the meme and forgotten. I considered letting it go, as I had done with so many small digs over the years. But something had changed in me during my months of freelancing. I had learned to value myself and my work in ways that weren't dependent on external validation. And I had grown a backbone. I called Brooke directly. "Hey, what's up?" She answered casually, as if she hadn't just publicly mocked my livelihood. "That meme you sent," I said, my voice steadier than I expected. "It was inappropriate and hurtful." "Oh my God, it was just a joke," she laughed. "Don't be so sensitive. Everyone thought it was funny." "I didn't. You took my good news and turned it into an opportunity to belittle my work." "Seriously, Jillian, it's not that deep. Maybe if you weren't so insecure about your career choices, you could take a little teasing." Her deflection was masterful, turning my legitimate complaint into a character flaw on my part. It was a tactic she had employed throughout our lives, one that usually left me questioning myself, rather than holding her accountable. "This isn't about insecurity," I said firmly. "It's about respect. Would you appreciate it if I sent memes mocking finance professionals whenever you shared good news?" "That's completely different," she replied, her voice taking on the condescending tone I knew well. "I have a real job with real responsibilities. I'm not just sitting at home in pajamas playing on my computer all day." And there it was, the truth beneath the joke. Despite my years of education, my technical expertise, and my professional accomplishments, my sister saw my work as equivalent to playing video games. She couldn't or wouldn't acknowledge the value or legitimacy of a career path different from her own. You know what, Brooke? You have no idea what I actually do, because you've never bothered to ask or listen when I've tried to explain it. And that meme didn't just insult me, it insulted an entire profession of people who build everything you use online every day. Why are you making such a big deal about this? She sighed. It was a stupid meme. Get over it. I realized then that no explanation would bridge this gap. Brooke's identity was too intertwined with being the successful daughter, the one who had made the right choices. Acknowledging the legitimacy of my path would require questioning the superiority of her own, something she wasn't prepared to do. I need to get back to work, I said finally. To my actual job designing websites that companies pay me well for. Enjoy your evening. I hung up feeling both drained and strangely empowered. For perhaps the first time, I had directly confronted the dismissive attitude that had shadowed my career choices. It hadn't changed Brooke's perspective, but it had affirmed my own. Later that evening, my mother texted privately. Brooke says you're upset about the joke. You know she didn't mean anything by it, right? Don't take everything so seriously, sweetheart. Once again, my feelings were being invalidated. My reaction framed as an overreaction. I didn't respond. That night, lying in bed, I had a revelation that shifted something fundamental inside me. My family would never be the source of validation for my career choices. They were too invested in a narrative where Brooke's path was the definition of success, and mine was a questionable alternative. I had been seeking their approval for years, measuring my worth through their recognition. It was time to stop. My clients valued my work enough to pay for it. My growing portfolio spoke for itself. My improving financial situation and work-life balance were tangible proofs of my success. I didn't need a meme, a group chat, or even my family to validate my choices. And with that realization, I felt a weight lift that I hadn't even known I was carrying. The meme incident became a turning point in how I approached both my career and my family relationships. Instead of seeking validation from those who weren't equipped to provide it, I looked outward, connecting with people who understood my industry and valued my skills. The day after the group chat debacle, I visited a local co-working space for the first time. The monthly membership fee felt like an unnecessary expense, but I needed to break out of my isolation and surround myself with other professionals who chose alternative work arrangements. The exposed brick walls, communal tables, and buzz of focused energy felt instantly welcoming. I set up my laptop near a window and immersed myself in coding, occasionally looking up to see others engaged in their own work. No one questioned whether what I was doing was real work. No one suggested I was just playing games. The simple acknowledgement of my profession as legitimate was refreshing. You're new here, right? A woman about my age sat down across from me during the communal lunch hour. She introduced herself as Amara, a freelance graphic designer who had left agency life 2 years earlier. How long have you been freelancing? That simple question led to an hour-long conversation about client relationships, setting rates, and the challenges of explaining our careers to family members who work traditional jobs. It was the first time I had spoken to someone who truly understood my daily reality. My parents still ask when I'm getting a real job. Amara laughed. I make twice what I did at the agency and work half the hours. But in their minds, if you don't have a boss in an office, you're unemployed. Her words echoed my experience so perfectly that I felt a surge of validation. I wasn't alone in this struggle. There were others forging similar paths, facing similar judgments, and succeeding despite them. That conversation was the first of many. I began visiting the co-working space 3 days a week, gradually forming friendships with other freelancers and remote workers. They became my professional community people who could celebrate my wins and offer guidance through challenges from a place of understanding. Through this network, I met Jason, a project manager for a digital marketing agency who needed a reliable web developer for client projects. Our first collaboration went so smoothly that it led to a retainer agreement guaranteeing 20 hours of work monthly at my highest rate yet. Your portfolio is impressive, Jason said during our contract discussion, and your corporate background gives you an edge in understanding enterprise client needs. We're lucky to have found you. His professional respect was a stark contrast to my family's perception. Here was someone evaluating me solely on the quality of my work and the value I brought to his team, without preconceived notions about what constituted a legitimate career. As my client roster expanded, I began specializing in e-commerce platforms for small to medium businesses, an area where I could command higher rates for my expertise. I redesigned my professional website, highlighting successful case studies and client testimonials. I started a blog sharing technical insights, positioning myself as an authority in my niche. These strategic moves paid off financially. 6 months into freelancing, I had my first month billing more than my former corporate salary, while working fewer hours and maintaining control over my schedule. I was able to replenish the savings I had depleted during my early months, and even began setting aside money for retirement again. The transformation wasn't just professional. As I gained confidence in my career decisions, I found myself pulling away from the family dynamics that had diminished me for so long. I spoke to my parents less frequently, declining Sunday dinners, when I knew Brooke would be holding court with her latest accomplishments. I stopped sharing professional news in the family chat, saving those announcements for people who would genuinely celebrate them. This distance was both self-protective and necessary for growth. Like a plant moved from shade to sunlight, I was finally flourishing in an environment that nourished rather than stunted me. My mother noticed the change first. "We hardly hear from you anymore," she said during one of our increasingly brief phone calls. "Are you still upset about that silly meme Brooke was just teasing?" "I'm not upset, Mom. I'm busy building my business," I replied. And it wasn't just teasing, but I've moved past it. The truth was more complex. I hadn't moved past the fundamental disrespect the meme represented, but I had accepted that changing their perception wasn't my responsibility. I could choose to invest my energy where it yielded positive returns, both emotionally and professionally. As months passed, my absence at family gatherings became a topic of discussion. My father called one evening, his tone unusually conciliatory. "Your mother misses you at Sunday dinners," he said. "And to be honest, so do I." "I appreciate that, Dad. But those dinners had become uncomfortable for me. Every achievement of mine gets minimized while Brooks are celebrated endlessly." His silence told me he couldn't deny the truth of my words. "We're proud of you too, Jillian. We just don't always understand what you do." "Have you ever really tried to understand?" I asked gently. "Because I've been explaining it for years, and it feels like no one has been listening." Another silence. "Maybe we haven't," he admitted finally. "Your sister's path is just more familiar to us." It was the first acknowledgement, however small, that their treatment had been unequal. Not an apology, but a recognition that perhaps they had failed to give my career the attention and respect it deserved. As the holiday season approached, bringing with it the inevitable extended family gathering, I knew I had a decision to make. I could continue my distance, protecting myself from further dismissal, or I could attend with new boundaries and expectations secured in my own success, and no longer seeking their validation. I chose the latter not because I needed to prove anything to them, but because I had finally proven something to myself. I was succeeding on my own terms, and perhaps it was time to give my family one more chance to see me, as I truly was not as they had always assumed I should be. Thanksgiving arrived with a dusting of early snow, and the usual anxiety I associated with extended family gatherings. I had deliberately arrived last, just as everyone was sitting down to dinner, minimizing the pre-meal mingling that typically featured extensive discussions of Brooke's latest accomplishments. My parents' dining room was crowded with familiar faces. Aunts, uncles, cousins, and my grandfather all squeezed around the expanded table, passing dishes and pouring wine. Brooke sat in her usual place of honor near my father, already holding court, with a story about her recent business trip. "The client absolutely insisted on taking us to this exclusive restaurant," she was saying as I slipped into the empty chair across from her. "You need reservations months in advance, but somehow they got us in. The chef personally came to our table." I focused on filling my plate, not making eye contact. 6 months ago, I would have sat silently, allowing her narrative to dominate the conversation. Today, I felt no urge to compete for attention. The quiet confidence I had developed through building my business had changed something fundamental in how I occupied space, even in this familiar dynamic. My Aunt Linda, always the most interested in everyone's lives, eventually turned the conversation my way. "Jillian, we haven't heard from you in ages. How is everything? Are you still doing the computer thing from home?" Before I could answer, Brooke interjected with a laugh. "Oh, Jilly's living the dream, playing on her computer all day in pajamas, right, sis?" There it was again, the deliberate minimization, the framing of my work as trivial entertainment rather than a professional pursuit. In the past, I would have smiled uncomfortably or offered a self-deprecating joke. Today, I simply looked directly at her. Actually, Aunt Linda, my web development business has been thriving, I said, turning away from Brooke to address my aunt directly. I specialize in creating e-commerce platforms for small and medium businesses. Companies hire me to build websites that help them sell products online effectively. That sounds complicated, Aunt Linda said, seeming genuinely interested. Do you have many clients? I do. I'm currently working with 8 regular clients, including a tech startup that just secured second-round funding. Their investor actually specifically approved my contract because of my portfolio quality. My father cleared his throat. Well, that's nice, Jillian. Brooke was just telling us about her department exceeding their quarterly targets by 15%. That's great, I acknowledged briefly before continuing. One of the aspects I love most about freelancing is the work-life balance. I've been able to increase my income while reducing my working hours compared to my corporate job. My statement hung in the air, a direct challenge to the narrative that had been constructed around my career choice. Brooke's smile tightened slightly. But there's no stability in freelancing, she countered. No benefits, no retirement plan. You're always hustling for the next gig. Instead of becoming defensive, I pulled out my phone. Actually, I'd like to show you all something. This is my client portal with my current projects and income projections for the next 6 months. I passed my phone around the table, letting family members see the professional interface where I tracked projects worth thousands of dollars. Their expressions shifted from polite interest to genuine surprise. You make this much per project? My cousin Michael asked, eyes widening at one of the figures. For larger builds, yes, and I have retainer clients who pay monthly for ongoing maintenance and updates. But this isn't like a real job, Brooke insisted, her voice taking on a slight edge. It's just temporary contracts. These clients could drop you anytime. Just like companies can lay off employees anytime, I countered calmly. The difference is I have diversified my income across multiple clients. So if one ends our relationship, I'm not suddenly without any income. And I have full control over which projects I accept and how I price my services. I pulled up another screen showing my income graph for the past 6 months, the line trending steadily upward. Last month, I earned more than my highest monthly salary at my corporate job while working about 30 hours a week instead of 80. The table fell silent. This concrete evidence of my success was harder to dismiss than vague descriptions of my work. Even my father seemed to be reassessing as he studied the numbers. Well, my mother said finally, that's wonderful, Jillian. We just worry about your future, that's all. I appreciate the concern, Mom, but I've actually been able to contribute more to my retirement accounts this year than last, and I've rebuilt my emergency fund. Plus, I'm happier and healthier than I've been in years. Brooke, visibly uncomfortable with the attention I was receiving, attempted to redirect. That's all great for now, but what about career advancement? In 5 years, I'll be on track for a director position. Where will your freelancing take you? It was a question designed to highlight the perceived limitations of my path compared to her linear corporate progression. But I had an answer ready. I'm actually in the process of forming an LLC and considering hiring a junior developer next year to handle overflow work. Several of my clients have requested expanded services, which could eventually lead to building a boutique agency. The growth potential is significant. An agency? You mean like having employees? My father asked, genuine curiosity breaking through his usual dismissiveness. Exactly, starting with contractors and potentially moving to full-time staff as the business expands. For the first time, I watched my father consider my work with the same seriousness he applied to Brooke's career. The shift in his expression was subtle but unmistakable, a recalibration of respect that I had sought for years. The digital economy is where the growth is, my uncle commented, joining the conversation. My company just moved most of our budget from traditional marketing to online channels. We need people like Jillian to build the infrastructure. The conversation expanded with family members asking questions about websites, online shopping, and digital trends. For once, I was positioned as the expert my knowledge valued and sought after. Brooke grew increasingly quiet as the discussion continued, her usual spotlight dimmed. When she finally tried to interrupt with another story about her recent promotion, I noticed something remarkable. My father gently raised his hand, saying, "Just a moment, Brooke. I'm interested in hearing more about how Jillian's e-commerce systems work." It was a small gesture, but represented a seismic shift in our family dynamic. For the first time in memory, my professional insights were being prioritized over Brooke's achievements. The validation I had stopped seeking had arrived organically through demonstrable success rather than desperate explanations. As dessert was served, Brooke made one last attempt to reassert the old hierarchy. Well, it all sounds very interesting, Jilly's little computer business. But I should mention that my firm just offered me the opportunity to open their new Seattle office. It's a huge responsibility that comes with a significant salary increase and equity options. Her announcement, clearly saved for maximum impact, was met with the expected congratulations from our parents. But something had changed in the room's energy. Her news didn't diminish the interest in my work that had been sparked. The two career paths now existed side by side, neither automatically elevated above the other. As family members began to depart, several asked for my business card, wondering if I could help with their own company websites or personal projects. My Aunt Linda hugged me tightly and whispered, "I always knew you were doing something special, even if your parents didn't quite get it." Gathering my coat, I overheard Brooke speaking to our mother in the kitchen. "I don't understand why everyone's making such a big deal about Jillian's freelancing. It's not like she's changing the world or anything." My mother's response surprised me. "She's changed her world, Brooke. And sometimes that's enough." I left the gathering with a lightness I hadn't felt in family settings for years. I hadn't come seeking validation, but having received it, I recognized its sweetness. More importantly, I recognized that I no longer needed it to believe in the value of my choices. The drive home through light snow gave me time to reflect. The confrontation I had anticipated hadn't materialized in the dramatic form I expected. Instead, there had been a subtle redistribution of respect, a quiet acknowledgement that success could take different forms than the narrow definition my family had previously accepted. It wasn't perfect resolution. Brooke was clearly unsettled by the shift in dynamics, and old patterns wouldn't disappear overnight. But a door had opened to a new possibility, one where my sister and I might eventually exist as equals, rather than as the golden child and the question mark. As I parked outside my apartment building, my phone buzzed with a text from my father. "Proud of what you've built, Jillian. Perhaps you could take a look at the outdated website for my company sometime. Happy to pay your professional rate." I smiled at the message, recognizing it for what it was, a small step toward understanding, respect, and perhaps eventually healing. The holiday confrontation marked the beginning of a gradual transformation in my family relationships. Like most real change, it didn't happen dramatically or completely, but in small moments that accumulated over time. My father's request to help with his company website became our first professional collaboration. I approached it with the same processes I used for any client sending a formal proposal and contract, rather than treating it as a family favor. He seemed surprised, but impressed by my professionalism. "You've really built a structured business here," he commented during our kickoff call. "I guess I pictured you just winging it from your apartment." "That's how many freelancers start," I explained. "But successful ones develop systems and processes that make their work sustainable and scalable." And working together gave him firsthand exposure to my expertise. He watched me transform his outdated corporate site into a modern, responsive platform that immediately increased leads for his business. When the project concluded, he paid my invoice without question or negotiation, a simple act that acknowledged the value of my work more powerfully than words could have. My mother's evolution was more subtle. She stopped sending me job listings and began forwarding articles about successful entrepreneurs instead. During our phone calls, she asked specific questions about my clients and projects, making a genuine effort to understand my daily reality. "I saw a segment on the morning show about web developers being in high demand," she mentioned during one conversation. "It made me think of you. They said good ones can name their price these days." These small acknowledgments felt like tentative steps toward a new understanding. Neither of my parents would ever fully grasp the technical aspects of my work, but they were beginning to respect it as a legitimate and valuable profession. Brooke took longer to adjust to the shifting family dynamic. Our relationship remained strained for several months after Thanksgiving, with minimal communication beyond group family texts. She seemed uncomfortable with any conversation that touched on careers or success, perhaps unsure how to interact now that her position as the definitively successful daughter had been challenged. The thaw began unexpectedly. 9 months after I had left corporate life, Brooks' firm underwent a restructuring that eliminated the Seattle opportunity she had been promised. It was her first significant professional setback, and it shook her confidence in ways she hadn't anticipated. "I did everything right," she confessed, during a rare phone call, her voice tight with emotion. "I worked the long hours, played the political game, sacrificed my personal life, and they still cut the position without warning." Her distress felt familiar, echoing my own disillusionment with corporate promises. Rather than highlighting the parallels or suggesting she consider alternatives, I simply listened, offering the understanding she needed in that vulnerable moment. A week later, she sent a text that surprised me. Could we grab coffee sometime? I have some questions about how you planned your transition to freelancing. Our coffee meeting was initially awkward, years of competition and resentment creating a barrier between us. But as Brooke began asking practical questions about financial planning for career transitions, the conversation found an easier rhythm. I'm not saying I want to freelance, she clarified quickly, but I'm considering moving to a smaller firm where I might have more control over my career trajectory. I realized I don't want to be at the mercy of corporate decisions anymore. That makes sense, I replied, careful not to push my own path as the solution. The important thing is finding the right fit for your skills and priorities. It was perhaps our first adult conversation that wasn't underpinned by sibling rivalry or family dynamics, just two professionals discussing career strategies. By the end of our meeting, something had shifted slightly. The meme incident still hung between us unacknowledged, but its power had diminished. As my business continued to grow, I took steps toward the agency model I had envisioned. I hired my first contractor, a junior developer named Zoe, who handled smaller projects while I focused on complex builds and client relationships. 3 months later, I added a part-time project manager to streamline communications and workflows. Each expansion of my business seemed to further legitimize it in my family's eyes. When I mentioned hiring decisions during Sunday dinners, they were treated with the same seriousness as Brooke's work developments. The playing field had gradually leveled, allowing space for different versions of success to be recognized. 1 year after the meme incident that had crystallized years of dismissal, I invited my family to the small celebration, marking the official launch of Bright Path Web Solutions, my newly incorporated agency. Watching them enter the co-working space where I had found my professional community, I felt a complex mix of emotions, pride, and vindication, tempered with lingering hurt. My father examined the framed portfolio pieces on the wall, lingering at the display of client testimonials. "Your mother and I were talking," he said quietly. "We owe you an apology for not taking your work seriously sooner. We were wrong." His acknowledgement, simple and direct, healed something deep that I hadn't realized was still raw. "Thank you for saying that, Dad." "It means a lot." My mother embraced me tearfully. "We're so proud of what you've built, sweetheart. I wish we had supported your vision from the beginning." Brooke approached last, holding a small gift bag. "Congratulations on the company launch," she said, an unfamiliar uncertainty in her voice. "I got you something." Inside the bag was a high-quality leather portfolio embossed with my new company logo. "For client meetings," she explained, "to replace the folder you've been using." "Thank you," I said, genuinely touched by the thoughtful gift. "It's perfect." She hesitated, then added, "I'm sorry about the meme, Jillian. It was mean and dismissive. Your work has always been valuable, and I was too caught up in my own path to see that different doesn't mean less than." Her apology, unexpected and sincere, marked the true turning point in our relationship. The competition that had defined our interactions for decades hadn't disappeared completely, but it had evolved into something healthier, a mutual respect for different strengths and choices. As I looked around at my family, mingling with my colleagues and clients, I realized how significantly my relationship with validation had changed. A year ago, I had desperately sought my family's approval, measuring my worth against their recognition. Today, I appreciated their support, but no longer required it to believe in my choices. The journey from seeking external validation to finding internal confidence had transformed not just my career, but my sense of self. The painful dismissal captured in that meme had ultimately pushed me to prove my worth first to myself, and then to a world that valued my skills. The lesson wasn't that family approval doesn't matter, but that it cannot be the foundation upon which we build our sense of value. True confidence comes from creating something meaningful, regardless of whether those closest to us initially understand its worth. As the celebration continued around me, I felt profound gratitude for the difficult path that had led me here, to a place of both professional success and personal peace. The meme that once wounded me now seemed like a necessary catalyst, the spark that ignited a transformation far more significant than a mere career change. Have you ever had your passion dismissed by those who should have supported you? I would love to hear how you handled it in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button, subscribe to hear more journeys of finding your worth despite others' doubts, and share with someone who might need to be reminded that their path is valid, even when others can't see it yet. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember that sometimes the people who underestimate you are giving you the perfect motivation to exceed even your own expectations.